Welcome. You've splash landed into this Prosecco-laden podcast, straight into the woo-woo pool with the crew of Ohm-g. We're just a simple group of tragically imperfect and highly empathic BFFs, exploring a wide range of atypical topics with humor, grace, and curiosity. This is Ohm-g.
Okay, y'all. We've said this before. Spiritual awakening is not a frolic in the park and not even a day at the beach. More often than not, it's like being stuck in quicksand next to a lava-spewing volcano. A dark night of the soul, if you will. But the good news, it is always darkest right before the dawn. If this resonates, then you're in the right place. Here with the crew of
Ohm-g, the podcast. Welcome back, guys.
This is Brenda.
And this is Lynn.
This is Aaron.
And this is Chandra.
And we're missing Camille today, so sending her some
Obviously.
love. Yeah.
Lynn probably most of all.
Sending her the love down in Texas, visiting with family.
But we do have a special guest taking Miss Camille's chair today. And we know her as the lovely Tovi Amanda on the social medias. Our friend Tovi from British Columbia, Canada. She's nearest to Vancouver. And we've known Tovi for several years and have kind of shared along with her our spiritual awakening. Going along with her spiritual awakening, we've kind of been going through this together as part of our community. And she's recently become an intuitive yoga instructor and practitioner, which has kind of like opened up a brand new chapter in her awakening that we've all found very enlightening and very interesting. And we wanted to bring her on just to talk about her experience today. So we're so glad to have you here with us, Tovi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me, Tovi, about how you came across the podcast.
I came across the podcast at the very beginning of my spiritual awakening. I was actually just looking for witchy type information. And so my fiance and I were traveling lots at that time in our lives, and we were looking at podcasts, and your podcast was the one that came up. So I was shocked and couldn't believe that actually there is something out there that was kind of hitting on the points that were awakening within me, which was the, extra idea that we could have all been witches before at some point in our life. And then now we're living in this life and these memories are coming back. And what is really going on, at all. And then through your podcast, you had offered your free readings on Fridays that you would put out to the public to help everybody understand better what they're going through and just help them with information. And so I think it took me a couple weeks to really even get up the courage, or maybe, just now knowing it wasn't really time for me to receive the message that I got when I put in my question to you. And at that point in my life, I was what I thought really on a good path. My life had turned. Things are going in the right direction. I wasn't drinking any more alcohol anymore. I had quit that, which was a huge hereditary cycle in my family. And just everything was brighter. I had opened up to the extra. I was starting to watch spirit science. So I was learning more about the universe. And so I felt like I was just really on the path. This is my new life, right? And awakening to I might have these witchy tendencies. I've always done these things. This is kitchen witchery. This is garden witchery. This is all these other things. I felt like I was becoming a little more whole and realizing who I actually am. So in that, I sent you guys a message saying, I'm on this path. What is next for me? What's going on? Where's the big move? This is definitely it. I found these ladies. Oh, God bless. This is it. And I sent a message along those lines, like, I've changed my life. I'm on the right path. Everything is basically amazing. And with so much love and care and compassion, you had let me know that, yes, Spirit sees that you have made these changes. And I think the thing that really, really, and it still breaks like my heart open, is you said also, there's a long road ahead of you and it will get better, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And the thing that got me to know that it was true on like a soul level is you said a lot of communication will happen and needs to happen, and a lot of healing and communication. And communication was not even something that I felt comfortable in. I didn't, kind of like, if it looked nice over there, if you acted nice, if you said the nice things, then everything's okay. Like, still really that glassed over stage of my life. And as we all go through, lots of things in my life had happened and changed, and trauma and judgment and betrayal and all those things that we all experience in this carnation, really, I think.
Right.
Communication was the lowest on the totem pole of anything that I had practiced at that point. So it was like, oh man, this is so true. And I was so grateful that you guys were there and continued to be there every Friday, even after that, because it was kind of after that where I think it opened me up enough to know that, okay, it's real, like things are real and the work needs to be done and the road is long and you're on the path, like you're already on it. So open up to the fact that you're not perfect.
Right.
You're not perfect. Things aren't, yeah, sure, they're better. You're working on yourself. You're making improvements and stuff like that. But you got a long way to go.
Don't we all?
Don't we all?
Amen.
But
Yeah.
in some ways, it seems like it was so long ago,
It does.
sitting there with you on those Friday mornings. But looking back at just how much, and I guess it seems so long ago because thinking about how much you've grown and how much you've changed, how much we've grown, what a different place even those of us, here on the podcast are in. But I remember those Friday mornings after we would get off the call, Brenda and I would just look at one another and would like, oh, that was so hard to deliver. I mean, because your light was so bright and it was just like everything in us wanted to be like, you're amazing. You're working so hard. Go, go, go. And Spirit was going like, girl,
You know good and well.
We're going to make you real in this. It's like, okay.
Growth is not easy, but she's so sweet. But growth is hard. But Spirit, give her
a break.
Give her a break.
But we were always like, oh my God, I love them so much. Like there's just something about your energy and the enthusiasm you had for everything that you were like
learning
wanting to do
and experiencing. It was amazing.
And I would feel that excitement whenever you would ask some of those questions. I'd be like, yes, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Let's learn about this one.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then Spirit's like, but you need to keep in mind.
Right?
Stop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that people think that spiritual awakening is some like magical experience. And they're going to suddenly start seeing angels and spirits everywhere. And it's like more like getting slapped upside the back of the head and getting knocked down so that you can actually grow, because growth is not comfortable.
No.
And Spirit going, can you believe you have believed this BS for your whole entire, like you get these flashes of like, how is it possible that I've let myself believe this about myself for X number of years? And you just, it's more of that feeling of like, how stupid could I have been when and then you have to work through all of that. Like, I don't want to say self-loathing, but just the guilt and the shame of like, why haven't I seen this sooner?
Yeah.
And it's just that whole
unlearning.
Right. That whole unlearning journey also is, like you said, it's ego buster. And you have to deal with all of that stuff that comes up about yourself.
Yeah. And I think like I've seen in a similar vein to this conversation, I don't remember what post it was this week. It was some kind of spiritual woo-woo thing on Instagram that I saw, like a short little clip about spiritual awakening. And some folks in the comments were like, well, what if I start to do this and everyone leaves. Right. And so like what I intuited was like, well, there's the fear, like that person's fear of abandonment, right? Relatable. What if everyone in my life shuns me or shuts me out or whatever? That was something that I really struggled with as part of my spiritual awakening, quote unquote, was kind of like what you were speaking to, Tovi, right? Like I'm doing all this work and like I'm growing and I'm changing and oh, good for me. And like it just makes you feel good because it's kind of like inflating the ego a bit, right?
Big, yeah.
And then those changes start to happen, but then you get to a point where you have to start growing, which is never comfortable, like the lady said. And so a lot of people in my life did start to fall away either. And a lot of it just kind of happened organically, right? Like it just wasn't aligned anymore. We were not vibrating on the same frequency or plane. And that was my biggest fear, I think, starting my journey. And now I recognize it as the biggest blessing because when that cleared out, that empty space needed to be filled with something new that was aligned. And that's when like I found all of you and the people that are in my tribe now, and it's just, I don't know. So I feel like that's a little message someone that's listening that's in their spiritual awakening might need to hear is that it's okay if you lose everybody because better, more aligned things are coming your way that feel better.
Well, and we're all taught to juggle all the balls, keep all the balls in the air, keep it all together. It's your responsibility to make sure that things don't fall apart. Pay your bills, get your oil changed, get your, like all these things are your responsibility to keep everything working and moving and going the way it's supposed to function. But when you start this journey, what nobody really tells you is that to build you're not going to build a new life on ground over there. You're going to build a new life on your foundation. And so you're going to have to tear down what's already on that foundation and to let things in your life crumble because it's for your highest good and that something better is going to come back in its place. But it still feels like you're, as a human, like you're doing something wrong. Like, why is all this stuff like falling apart in front of me and I can't do anything and part of me don't want to do anything about it.
So Tovi, this is Lynn. And this is just something that kind of popped in a while ago when you were talking about the growth and everything that you were creating and changing. I don't exactly know what this means because I didn't get too far down into it, but I saw dual waterfalls on the side of you. So something like free flowing energy.
Oh, that could be definitely. And I do know that the waterfalls there was one space that I would always go to during my awakening, and it was a waterfall. And my fiance, Sean, and my best friend, Robin, and I would always go there. And it was like we kind of all busted open into this awakening of our own, seeing life authentically to us, not so much in systems and that kind of thing. So we were kind of like all together in this little group, and we would always just go and sit by the waterfall also. So that could be, we'd spend our time there. It was out of town, and we'd travel out. There's a couple waterfalls in the town I was living in at the time. We'd always just like spend our time there and be like, you could breathe. Like that's how suffocating breaking out of these thought patterns. And like you were saying, you feel like you're doing something wrong. You feel like you don't belong anymore. You almost feel like you're like during COVID when it was, are you vaccinated or are you not? That was kind of like the beginning, I think, of all of that. Like, what do you truly believe? What do you know? And when people didn't see what they believed in you, it's like you were against. So I think coming off the heels of even that energy, and then just over a year later being busted open into, okay, now I'm really different than anything I see around me. So yeah, the waterfalls were huge energy healing spaces, I guess, for us to go to.
I guess that's why I saw it then.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
So I have a question for you. I think that most people who are on this path have always had some sort of interest in spiritual things, whether it's been, I was interested in ghosts and things like that whenever I was a kid, or whether somebody was interested in witchcraft or whatever it might be. And so I think that's like a part of your soul, like you've done these things before. So it's still there in the background. Did you have anything similar to that growing up, that you had like an interest in something that was outside the norm?
No. It was all a big, awesome surprise.
Wow.
Literally. Yeah. Nothing like kind of weave back into, maybe I wasn't aware of it. Now, being from the point I'm in now, I can go like throughout my adult life. In my cooking, I would put my heart in it, and I would pick these herbs, and I'd love like my little herb garden, and the things I was picking and putting in meant more than just cooking, because that's what you put in the recipe. So I knew once I awakened to the witchy traits, oh, I do that. That's what I do. That is in my heart. That's what I do. And like when I was younger, I would be the kid in the forest making the perfumes out of the pine needles and the sticks but I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't a friend that I actually had other friends that would introduce me to tarot, and I'd go, oh yeah, I really like that. But it was their thing, really. So once even waking up to the witchiness of who I am was a huge, it was really scary, because I knew no one around me would understand. Like the witch things would be too cartoony. That's what kids play. Like that's not what adults do in my circle of people I hang out with, right? It's like, so yeah, I did feel, aside from once I awoke to this stuff, being like, oh, okay, I can see that. I don't really have any memories of my childhood too much. I know what I know, but nothing that stands out that I could go, yes, that's exactly why I'm going through this. And maybe one day that will unlock when I'm ready for it. But at this point, I don't really have it. I remember sitting beside animals and not wanting to leave a certain place that we were at with my mom, because I was talking to a dog, and I knew I was, and I really liked the conversation. And I was probably about 5. So I do remember that, but that memory is just kind of unlocked in maybe the last couple of months.
Yeah. I do remember some other conversations, Tovi, that we've had together, but having that feeling when you were younger of like, you'll be exposed to something and you just know it's bigger than that. Like you take a look at the things that your parents or your parents' friends or the adults around you believe, and you're like, that seems kind of closed-minded to me. Like that seems a very small way to believe about that thing. Like I remember us having that conversation. Like looking back, you don't contribute that to like being witchy or whatever, but I do contribute it to like your soul just was
knew the big.
Yeah, your soul knew that you were going to expand beyond this reality. Like even then, you're just like, that can't be all that there is. I feel like your and my experience as a child were, other than being like paranormal or witchy or ghosty or anything like that, was more of that type of experience of like, I can't wait till I get older and learn the real truth, because that can't be it. That can't be all there is. Right?
Definitely. Yes. The only thing I can explain it is I remember like looking at a field, and then just kind of like my awareness would downsize each time. Like, here's the field, and then here's the piece of wheat, and then what's on that wheat, and what's on that thing that's on that wheat, and what am I on, and what is looking down on me, like I'm looking down on this wheat. And I think I was maybe, about 7, and then being like, okay, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kept playing, like, oh, I get it. Like, there's way more than the kind of like the Who from Whoville really resonated with me. Like, yeah, there's more to every layer of all the things that go down,
And it's not just I'm at the top looking down at the layers. I have to think about what are the layers. I don't want to say above me, like it's better than me, but like, what are the, there have to be layers.
I'm on this thing.
Right. And other dimensions of layers other than just like it starts here.
Right.
So it's almost like you are coming back to your child self, the one that knew instinctively, and then you got conditioned by all the layers of the human experience with all the things. So it's almost like you are unlearning all those old things so that you can connect back in with what your soul knew when you were just a wee little girl.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's a really, really good way to say it. And when I say no, I don't have anything that I really remember that, oh, okay, now I'm in my place, is that everything was always, nothing surprised me. Nothing surprised me. Everything is possible. I was always up for anything and everything, still am. Just probably that bigger picture, like you were saying, you just know it because you feel it because you're living here now, So it's like you must remember those pieces of you from all the lifetimes. And yeah, maybe they don't make sense. And maybe you're not like a identifier with certain names or identities or that kind of thing because you're so big. You're so big and you have so many that it's okay to just kind of be also, right? Like if I guess that's a word of advice, like you said, Erin, to somebody out there that's listening, that if it doesn't feel like you're really even doing anything, it's probably the best path to be on because there's changes afoot and you're there for it, you're showing up. And then one day you'll be able to like kind of look back and go, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that was the big change. But could anyone explain that to you in the beginning? Would that make any sense to your ego mind? Would it matter even? Probably not, but it does.
Yeah.
It's like that subtleness of the shifts that change your existence today.
And I think we're all continually like shifting and evolving because as you were talking, I was getting, you're not like finding that thing or whatever that you're going to be doing. It's like you're not there yet. Like there's more to come. So I think that's true for all of us who continue to strive to heal and grow and try to be better people and try to understand more. And we're open to that it's like this continual path. And I don't know that we ever reach any final destination in the soul's journey. We just continue to evolve and grow. So, do you have a particular experience of part of your awakening that you would like to share? Like something that was like a big lesson for you that you thought, oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be like this because this is happening and this is happening. And it's all the signs are pointing that I should do this. And you're like, well, shit, that ain't how it happened. But I learned X, Y, and Z.
I do. Yes, I have a big experience that didn't even last very long. It was about 3 weeks of my life. And coming up to it was months of preparation for my, what is it, like your being able to mentally handle it. Months and months of that preparation, kind of like an entwining of believing truly that this is the right path that I'm going on. And that experience was actually through the awakening. I was learning all these like really valuable tools to help people release energy and be in a right mindset. And Chandra and I actually wrote a journal about it. And so it's like a 15-week program that if you choose to, you go and you journal through and you will have all these awesome tools that I was using all the time that would just clear out my energy and help me elevate my consciousness even and just really stay in your heart space and be on your own individual path. And so this awesome journal came to life and it felt amazing and it felt awesome. And it was 108 days. And the reason why we did 108 days exactly is because through the practice of using a mala and mantra, that also shifted a huge shift within me that helped me, again, like kind of survive through this tearing down of everything around you. And so I was like, I have to share this. I have to share this. And it was awesome, amazing. We started selling the malas and how to store and built this journal and like a beautiful, beautiful journey. moving up into the home that I was in was placed up for sale. And so as I built this business, this is my income also. And I had sold the property and had some money in that. So I was using that money for building the whole business and the advertising and all these things and my rent and everything. So moving through that phase of this is the thing, right? Like I felt it, I knew it. All these practices literally are incredible still. And I believe in the project, but the timing wasn't right, obviously, because we have now revamped and changed the entire project of it. But going through that experience, and then my house goes up for sale and I was renting it, and it's like, okay, we'll try and find a place to live. And everything was so crazy expensive. And I have that experience twice, actually, where it's like you need a car or a house. And literally anything that you look at is almost ridiculously out of reach, like ridiculously, like it's not happening. It's not happening. So I had to shift my mindset and started looking at different places, different properties. And the day that I found my next key to go look at this property that I ended up moving on to, this piece of paper fell down in front of me, and it was a receipt from when I stayed at a resort. And the resort is called the 108 Mile Resort. And so I was like, oh, they have cabins there that you can rent. I wonder if they would rent us a cabin to live in. And so I phoned them, and the guy says, yeah, come out, come look at it. And so I told Sean, this actually just happened. The receipt fell down in front of my face. You know, it's the 108. It's a place we can afford it.
It's a sign.
It's a sign. It's a sign. And so this resort also had like a banquet room. So I was thinking, you know, I'm making all these new healer friends and whatever. And really we could like all fly here and have these big healing weekends. And the whole thing just made so much sense. And so we ended up moving out there, and the whole thing was literally a nightmare. The owner ended up leaving the resort. So myself and two other girls were running it. My job that I said I was going to be doing at the resort was helping him get more families into these cabins that are there for, you know, like we were, to live there and use the property and whatever. And there was like some people that were on there that were really just abusing the property. And he's also running it as a resort too, which was like, when he left, we had to learn how to like book in and clean everything and like do all the things that a resort needs. So it was a nightmare. It was literally a nightmare.
My gosh.
And I'm doing it. And I'm just doing it. Like I was so conditioned to, is that the storm? I can be like, I've got this. I've done trauma. I know how to do this. Like I was like 74 pounds, just totally running on this big mission of really what I thought was divine goals and growing and learning. And it did end up really truly being that, because it did show me that is my tendency. That is one of my weaknesses, of being like raised in strength. And you've got this in that strength. It's like, okay, that does have the other side of the pendulum that really will just destroy you if you don't open your mind.
You can keep 9 balls in the air, Tovi. Here's 10. Try 10.
Right.
You can do 9.
Yeah,
so let's try 10.
Exactly. Yeah, it was crazy. It was like Sean was gone, so I was staying there alone, and the people that were on the property were into like very like just selling drugs. we were trying to get them out. I would witness and videotape while the owner was away, like all these like drug selling interactions. I'd have them on video. I'd phone the police. The police did not care, like, at all. They basically, like, you choose to be there, you should probably leave that property because people sell drugs on it, was what I was getting. And I'm like, what is happening? This is for real. Like, okay. So keep in mind that this whole amount of time is, I've been there like 3 weeks, like under a month. And so I'm trying to think of what like the actual catalyst was. We were trying to get the people out on the property that weren't paying rent. And so I went up to the one door and she hadn't paid rent. So I was supposed to be giving her an eviction notice. And she said, "Oh, is this about the murder that happened?" Literally. And I'm like, looked at Sean, and I wouldn't do like any of these things that the owner wanted me to do, like the evictions and all that, without Sean with me. And I'm living on the property. These people are my neighbors that are drug dealers that I'm trying to evict. Like, it's just crazy. And so she said, "Is this about the murder?" And I'm like, what is actually going on here? So we end up finding out that the one guy that was on the property that was a major problem, his dad ended up getting murdered on a like neighboring piece of property. And so all of the people that would be over there on this other piece of property doing drugs came over to our resort and just took it over, literally. So yeah, it was absolutely horrible. The good families, but the people that aren't drug dealers, families that I did come to move in on the property, and like everything was transparent. I didn't like trick anyone about it. It was like, yeah, it is a rough place. We're cleaning it up. Everyone understood. And then there's a wave of people that literally don't care. They're on drugs. They live their own life. They don't care about what anyone else has to say. There's more than there is of us, say that. Those families and people were like, "I can't live here. I need my money back." And it's like, yeah, that completely makes sense. Like, I don't blame you. And so basically it came down to like the arrangement of payment with the owner, and through these people canceling out on their rental contracts, I owed him money in his eyes. Literally. So I was like, oh my gosh, I was driving my daughter back to Vancouver, and my cousin lives in the area, and she has a beautiful piece of property with a little cabin on it, little tiny cabin. And I drove my daughter back and went to her house and told her this. And she would always say to me, like, I built this cabin for you. Aww. I built this for you. Like, this is for you. So you can come and stay, and you can come and like be with me. Like, and so anyways, she said, I built the cabin for you. And I just said, I think I have to take you up on it. I have to go get my things. I'm going to move here. I can't stay there. I didn't get paid any money. I can't afford to go anywhere else. And so we left the area that I live in now, where my cousin is, went with a trailer, got all of our stuff, cleaned up the whole place. It took us like an hour and a half to really pack everything. I had downsized so much throughout the awakening. It was like, I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. It took us like no time, got our stuff, and ended up moving to where I live now, living on her property in a little cabin, basically like seasonal camping. Moved there in October. The day that we left in the morning to go get our stuff was the solar eclipse in October. Wow. And its whole theme was like a death and rebirthy thing. And it's like the coincidences when you have your awakening, you can't even get around them. They're just so much more real than anything anyone has ever told you, because it's a lived life experience. So going and getting my things and starting my new chapter was on this, whatchamacallit, summer solstice too, which was so crazy. So yeah, moved into the forest, basically did like seasonal camping, really immersed myself just in my environment, and was silent and meditated and cried and did all the deep work removed from society, basically, for about 4 months that went on. So back to the 108 and this big, it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I wouldn't have ever really even known to go over and live in my cousin's tiny cabin that has no running water, and like her family lives there. It's her house. Like, why would I ever think that that is my option or what I needed? And so, yeah, got to her place.
So what was your biggest lesson in like going there and following through on what you felt like were signs and intuition? Like, why do you think that you had to have that experience?
I think there's a couple layers to that. So one is faith, following the signs and having faith and knowing that you're protected. When I said before, there was a couple months of like kind of getting my psyche ready for this experience. That is deeply true in the fact that a lot of really scary things were happening to us. We did know that we were going to become homeless. We couldn't find a home. We lived in an urban area. So what are your options?
Right.
You know, do you want to move back in with your mom? I don't. I've done that 3 times, I think, already in my life. I didn't want to do that. And even though, you know, it would have been an option, it's just that wasn't. It was, we were living off the money that I had gotten from a property and putting money into a business thinking that that will be the income generator. And truly it didn't happen. And it's like, we didn't really even have much food. So my psyche was kind of getting broke down to like, what do you actually need? What do you need to live on? Well, you need your faith. You need love, a lot of love. And that kind of ties into something that you and I were talking about, Brenda, which is the toxic positivity. So I fell into that realm of the toxic positivity through all of this. And I mean, if you hear my story, you can see how much I did truly carry that in my survival kit, right? Because it's clear as day that those things that I was living through are not really truly the divine path. But I mean, I'm new, I'm learning, I've got this. I can figure it out. I can, you know, like you kind of like realize, I guess, how if you have to go survive through something, what do you have? Well, you always can. Do you want to? Do you want to keep doing that? And that's, I think, where the choice gets to switch for you. And you get to fully, even if it's like the signs seem like they're on the path or they're positive, say, signs, it's still going to be the lesson you need. Spirit is still putting those things in front of you for you to act on them. And knowing that you will be okay, you will be safe, and you'll learn a big lesson about you. And my big lesson would have been like, yeah, you can do it. And do I want to?
As you're telling the story, I'm kind of hearing this beautiful story of when you say all of that happened in the span of 3-4 weeks. And leading up to that, you were like, Spirit, I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to break out of this prison kind of like existence that I've lived up to now. I want to expand. I want to open up to the wonders of the universe, kind of feeling. And yeah, was it a crap experience? Absolutely it was. But it was like, you learned that in 3 weeks.
Exactly.
I mean, like looking back on it, it was like you learned 15 years of shite about yourself in 3 weeks. You learned how to let go of the outcome in 3 weeks. You learned how to depend on yourself without sacrificing yourself in 3 weeks. I mean, it's an amazing growth journey story when you break it down into the timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as you were speaking, I thought about, I think the very beginning of the conversation where Tovi, you talked about one of the like sort of themes of Brend and Chandra's message when you asked a question that first like woo-woo Friday was that I think, right, that some of it was about communication for you. And that was going to be like a big kind of like obstacle to overcome or where a lot of growth was. And it's funny because as humans, we try to control things and think that we know best for ourselves, which is just silly to think about. But I like, as you were speaking, pictured myself in your shoes, like needing to find somewhere new to live, having kind of an idea of what that might be. And then boom, this receipt falls out of this book, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go live on this resort. Oh, this is my spiritual awakening. We're going to sell malas. We're going to have meditation classes. And then you get there and it's like, dun, dun, dun. You know, it's like, oh, here's the growth. No, it's from spirit. That receipt was spent. You're supposed to be here. And then you had to communicate like with yourself, with Sean, like with the property owner. You had to make
with
like
the drug dealers,
with the drug dealers and the police and make evictions. Like, and I'm like, want to throw up at all of the thought of that, right? Because I'm so like conflict averse, working through layers of that. But what I heard so much in what you were speaking as you were sharing your story was that you've learned so much about communication and communicating your needs and things that you want, and that like wasn't the case prior to that experience. Does that feel true?
Oh, very, very, very true. Like hugely true. And when I say like the eviction notices and things like that, and speaking to the owner, it wasn't like, oh, go do this. Oh, okay. It was like, how are we going to, like, that's a big thing to navigate. And so, yeah, the communication and like you were saying too, being in my own heart still through it, trying to like, be like, I know there's a purpose here. Basically, it was kind of like a game in a way. Like, I know there's a purpose here. Like, I see it. So keep going. And then obviously when the time was done, then it was done. But yeah, it was definitely a wild ride.
I think it's really interesting too that spirit, like your guides, your helpers, whatever, for your soul evolution, they gave you this situation to live through, but then they gave you a safe place to go and to like really get down to the bare bones of what you need and to be out in nature and to restore your spirit. I feel like that place was kind of that for you.
Oh, definitely. It was. And that's where I found yoga. My cousin had a yoga studio that she was going to, that she introduced me to. She bought me my first month membership. She said, I'm going to buy you a month. And I was just like, couldn't believe it. Like, she's taken me in and she's getting me this month pass of like hot yoga. And I'm talking hot yoga is like candlelight. They do sound bowls. They do Reiki, like basically a spa almost every day.
Nice.
If you choose to go to it. And so it was just like this incredible gift. And the forest I was living in is like just the most beautiful rainforest and gorgeous animals, wildlife everywhere, like beautiful, but also, so how I explain how it was at the 108, like that darkness, and you can just feel it and see it. That was literally coming out of me all the time in that forest, like all the time in that forest. So, I mean, as much as I love myself and I love my light and I do have ego, like obviously there's some pretty deep darkness that needed to be shed and go out, because if spirit can put me in that, it's not because I'm this big, huge warrior of light. It's because there's an aspect of me over there that needed to be healed and really seen.
Well, and you couldn't do that until somebody held a mirror up to it, which is sometimes the most difficult part of the awakening is what you have to go through to see that about yourself so that you can then start to accept it, integrate it, heal it, release it, right?
Exactly. Just the same as like, say, the path of not drinking alcohol anymore. You quit that. You have a new life. You don't do it anymore. Once you can see exactly how toxic it is, you have a choice to make a new path. And so I think anyone that is quitting like a big habit, like an alcohol or some sort of toxic thing like that, really knows that it's okay to look at that shadow because you were living the shadow and then you quit it. So it's like, you see, oh, I still live, I still survive, I still have people that love me, I can continue on this path. And you can't deny that darkness. If anyone has been addicted to alcohol or drinking too much alcohol, it's not a pretty road at all. Right?
Yeah.
For sure.
And when you stop, like, that's something, like, I wouldn't consider myself alcoholic, quote unquote. However, like, I've certainly used it in my past to numb things and like use it as a crutch. And so when I first got into therapy, maybe about a year and a half ago, she was like, what if you just like stop for a week? Like, just try to kind of prove to yourself, that you could do that and like form a new routine when you get home from work in the evenings and whatever. And I was like, I don't want to do that. It's like, I really like my wine. But I did. And then I was like, oh my gosh, Aaron, like, you're feeling things now in the evening. And that's what you were afraid of, because to feel them, the stuff's going to process, or you're going to grow. And then you're going to have to, like, you could cry, you could be angry, whatever. And so now I feel like I have a lot healthier of a relationship with alcohol than I used to, for sure. But yeah, I was using it to numb things for so long. And I think that's kind of part of what a lot of people go through, I think, in a spiritual awakening, regardless of the substance, whether it's shopping or another person or drugs or whatever.
Or disassociation or reading. I mean, it doesn't have to be something that intrinsically is considered unhealthy. It can, anything that you use to just not.
Yeah.
Scrolling on my phone.
Preach.
Yeah.
Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly. Because when you're empathetic, you just feel everything so deeply. And so when you come home to yourself and like take your mask off and it's just you and your skeletal bones, you're like, I don't want to feel anything else. Let me do whatever I can, So thank you for speaking on that. I think that's important.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think, like, for myself, I really kind of built this fun identity around it. Like, that's where I could be funny and I could be fun and I could dance and I could be like, as long as you're doing those things with a drink, oh, yeah, she's drinking. That's why. It's like, if you just do that on your own.
You're weird.
Before I was like, who's doing that? What's she on? Like, what's up with that person? Now I don't feel that way, obviously, at all about anybody. But yeah, I definitely was in that conditioned mindset. So like, not even knowing who I was truly, like, not trusting that I have a good personality or that people would want to hang out with me, or what would I even say, or, those kinds of things. So
yeah,
it takes a lot of bravery to step out of something that's controlling your personality.
It does. And really quickly, and this is like totally unrelated, but I've been feeling for a few minutes like I need to say it. Your and Chandra's journal that you guys like co-wrote together. So when it came out, like, got a copy of it, and winters are always a difficult season for me, like just mood wise and getting into a routine and whatever. And that journal really helped me like start my days in a much more positive mind space every morning, like doing those practices. And I got the name is escaping me right now, but the mala with the rose quartz and the rhodonite and I think the black obsidian. And so I have it like hanging. I wear it from time to time, but I have it hanging in my like office space near my altar. And so yesterday when I went to do readings for clients, I like stopped and was like, no, you're supposed to wear that today. Like, it's part. And so I like, as I was doing the readings and channeling stuff, I was like, hold it, like going through each mala bead. So I just wanted you to know, like, even though that chapter, like, quote unquote, didn't work out the way that you saw it or thought that it might, that it still like has an impact on people. So thank you, Chandra.
I was going to say the same thing when she was talking about it, because you and I, Aaron, got the journal at the same time.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that 108 days for me helped me to connect into a deeper level.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So not a total waste of time.
Well, and it's like Tovi said, it's not a total waste of time, because now we've revamped it to go along with her intuitive yoga practice. So we can still, it's more geared to the physical practice than a meditative practice, but it's still out there, and it's still very, what's the right word? Relevant. There you go. Thank you, Brenda.
I was going to say fluid.
Yeah, applicable. And versatile, because you can change it with the physical or the spiritual.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And all of the tools, you don't need a special, like before with the mala, and just like really introducing that practice was in my heart. But without it, you really truly don't need anything but your own body to show up and experience these practices that will heal your body and mind and get you closer to your spirit. And yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
Yeah, me
So
too.
tell me what you're doing now, girl. What are you doing in your life? Like, how are you helping people?
So now I went to school. I experienced how yoga healed me. Like I said, I was 74 pounds and just in a state of pain, basically. In the beginning of my awakening, also, I should add that like my whole body started changing. Like I could feel the change in my bones. I still feel them to today. But I think without the physical practice and the healing of moving my body and moving my body with breath, just trauma was locked in my body and in my joints, and down to 74 pounds, and started going to yoga, which my cousin introduced me to. And I witnessed it starting to heal myself, my emotional level. I got closer to spirit. I released a lot and I could move my body and it wasn't as sore. To even try and explain the level of healing that I received from yoga is just, I don't really even have words for it. And so, yeah, after months of healing, and I saw a advertisement for the Vancouver School of Healing Arts, and I was like, oh, well, I do Reiki. I know I do energy work. I'm like into what is this School of Healing Arts? This sounds like it's my jam, that's for sure. And it's a yoga school. So I sent a message and I said, do you guys have student loans, or like literally are you hiring for front desk? How do I get involved in this and pay for some yoga schooling, And so she messaged me back, and they do student loans. Within less than 48 hours I was signed up for yoga school, and I started going to school, and it was about a week and a half in, and the teacher said, you guys, do you know what you're learning? Like what type of yoga this is? Like we haven't really gone through that because we were just getting into like doing a lot of it was singing and meditation and mantra, and it was just beautiful, right? And then starting to kind of learn these poses. But anyways, about a week and a half in, do you even know what style of yoga you're learning? And nobody even put up their hand. 23 people, nobody put up their hand, and we were learning Tantra yoga, which is an ancient practice of yoga that works with all the elements of the earth and gods and deities and mantra and meditation. And it was just like, this is why I'm here. Like you talk about the 108 beads and having goddesses and deities and stuff like that become in my awareness so that they can show me aspects so I can help healing myself. All this journey of me going, oh my gosh, I'm a magical witch, like for sure.
Yes.
Own it, girl. I love it.
Yeah, and I fully embodied all of it, which is good because I do love it down to the core, but it's all of these practices that we can use that help us remember who we actually are. And the way that the practices are set up, they're from the beginning of time of when this was all invented, and not invented, but downloaded into like a consciousness called Patanjali. And it helps you say mantra, get into meditation so that your mind isn't always taking over and taking control. And these practices also are paired with deities who have a story of like a birthing and why they're here and why this level of consciousness can come in through and help you understand what you're going through in your life today. So yeah, I just started learning about all of the practices that are offered around the idea of yoga, which yoga, the way I learned it is, yes, we move our body and we move it with breath is important. And also bringing in the aspects of the elements and the chakra system. And my course touched on Ayurveda. That'll be the next thing that I'm taking in January. I start that course. So basically, now I offer all of the skills that I started to learn in the last 3 years I was lucky enough to be placed in a school that showed me what all of these actually are and why they're here and how they can help us remember really, truly who we are.
So you're offering sessions online and in person?
Yeah. Yeah. In person sessions, but mostly online.
And what does that look like if someone wanted to book an appointment with you?
I have my calendar available and it's 90-minute sessions, and we just sit down and chat. And then intuitively, these practices there's so many of them. And so just through chatting and even doing some physical practice, then intuitively it starts to come with me like, you could really use this in your toolbox. Let's talk about this. I'll show you how to use it. That's about it. I introduce a lot first and then get feedback to see, how did you feel about the breath work? Did you notice anything? A lot of the one client I had immediately right after, she said, I can't even believe it. After one session, I usually take a while to fall asleep at night, and I fell asleep great. I'm like, that's the best feedback I could ever get.
Right.
It's really, really, they're ancient teachings, but they're so practical and they work. They work the body so that the body can release and your nervous system can regulate and you can quiet and let go of the things that are cycling in your mind and make space so you can actually view them. All the things that we were doing in our healing that we were just naturally doing because that's the healing process. I offer that with mindful practice, mindful connection. You know that you're in power. This is now your toolkit. You can reuse it over and over, like the mala and the mantra,
Right. And so it's not like I'm thinking about the client or someone listening who's like, I can't do 100 down dogs. It's much more intuitive based and more gentle movement.
Oh yeah, definitely. It is gentle movement. All the movement in the base practice that I offer, it's kind of like that circle that you step into that you can do these things and everything else in between is going to be what happens. And if that middle part or that end part didn't happen, well, that's the way that session went that day. All of those things physically, I'm building a practice right now for anyone that has knee injury. So it'll start in a chair yoga process because they can't get up and down from the ground. And then so that will be available too. It doesn't need to be a special offering. It'll just be the way it is and how I'll offer it. And then once I get to know what's going on, it's all gentle movement. It's all mindful breathing. It's visualization and meditation, basically moving through a practice and knowing how your body feels before, during, and after. And embodying that and knowing so you know that your body has changed, your psyche has changed, and you own these tools now because you just did them. So you can do them anytime.
I love that. So how can people find you if they want to make an appointment and experience a lovely Tovi?
Yes.
You can find me on Instagram. It's Tov's Yogs 11.
Can you spell that for people?
Yeah. It's TOVSYOGS 11. So Tov's Yogs.
I love it.
And we'll make sure to put all your scheduling links and journal links and all that stuff in the show notes.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yes.
So has anybody got any last questions for the lovely Tovi?
No questions, just I love you. And I'm so happy I got to see your face today.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you too.
It was so nice meeting you.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Very nice to meet you guys.
Do you have anything, Tovi, that you would like to say on the way out? A last message for anybody listening?
Yeah, I think the biggest message would be that we are all connected. So even if spirit is sending you down into the 108 to go, there's an aspect of you and you are safe and you are held, and just breathe through it, live through it, love through it, always with your heart, always opening your heart and trusting the people that come along your path that do resonate with you, even if it doesn't make sense. You're not overstepping, you're not encroaching on their space or their thing that they have going on. Guaranteed, if you've met them and you feel love and you know that they are in your realm of what you're interested in, just trust on that and start finding your people.
Well, that's beautiful. And I'll say that as you've been talking, you just radiate so much love. And my heart chakra just keeps going, wah, and I want to cry. And then it's like, oh, no, not now. And then I want to cry again. So I just love you so much. And I can't wait to have a session with you and experience what you're doing now.
And stay tuned for her upcoming memoir, Leaving the 108.
Right.
It's going to be the title of your life story. I'm sure of it.
Truly.
Oh, we love you so much, Tovi. And thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing your story with all of our 10 listeners. No, I'm just kidding.
We've grown a little bit, y'all, which speaking to you.
Your audience is amazing. Amazing.
They're incredible.
Yes, we love them.
And so if you're listening at home, we love you and thank you for listening. Reach out to Tov's Yogs 11 on Instagram. That's right.
11.
And should leave. And also for the podcast, if this is resonating with you or you think would resonate with someone you know, leave us a review.
Share it with them, please.
Yes. And engage with us on social media because we started this to make a community. And it's so bizarre. Like, it's just wild that you, Tovi, found the podcast and then now are here on it. Lynn found the podcast, found Brenda out in the wild, and is now a member of said podcast. It's just like, Spirit is just so cool and so crazy, and it just makes me want to happy dance. So thank you for being here, Tovi.
I love it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We love you. And everybody take care. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. It's so easy to do and such a huge help for us. We appreciate your interactions so much. Want to join us at our table? Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and join our Facebook community. If you've enjoyed this content and wish to support us, take a look at our Patreon page. All information and links will be in our podcast description. Catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.